I'm going to keep it straightforward because deciding on a UPS isn't something you want to guess at. I'll walk through what matters when you're looking at a 5 kVA/5 kW lithium-ion online unit, point out the moments where the price makes sense, and flag the spots that can bite you later. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, the hesitation most people feel. You've probably seen the headline specs, 5 kVA, lithium-ion cells, rack-mountable, and wonder if you're really getting a better deal than a traditional lead-acid UPS. The risk is twofold: overpaying for capacity you never use, or underprotecting equipment that can't afford an outage. That's why I spent some time looking at how this model actually behaves in a typical server room environment, and what the trade-offs are once it's installed. The Vertiv Liebert GXT5 is positioned as an online double conversion UPS, meaning it constantly conditions the power coming from the wall before handing it to your gear. For anyone who runs critical workloads, think virtualization hosts, network core switches, or a small SAN, that constant regulation eliminates the brownout moment that can corrupt data. The lithium-ion battery pack is where the product starts to diverge from the older lead-acid crowd. It promises a longer overall lifespan, faster recharge after an outage, and the ability to add more runtime modules without swapping out the whole unit. In practice, that translates to a few concrete advantages. Imagine a remote clinic that runs a telemedicine platform on a pair of rack-mount servers. Power flickers are common in that area, and the clinic can't afford a 10-minute data loss. With the GXT5, you get about 30 minutes of runtime right out of the box, and because the cells are lithium-ion, they regain full capacity in under an hour after a brief outage. If you later add a third server, you can slide an extra runtime module into the Intellislot without having to take the UPS offline. That scalability is a real time saver compared with a lead-acid unit that would require a full battery replacement. Another strength that shows up beyond the spec sheet is the total cost of ownership. Lithium-ion cells don't need the regular watering, equalization cycles, or temperature-controlled rooms that a traditional UPS demands. Over a 5-year horizon, you'll see fewer maintenance calls, lower electricity usage, because the charger operates at higher efficiency, and no need to buy replacement batteries every 2 to 3 years. For a small IT department that's already stretched thin, those hidden savings can be the difference between a justified capital expense and a lingering budget hole. But the upside comes with a higher upfront price tag. The GXT5 isn't a cheap entry point for a home office that only needs to keep a desktop and a router alive for 5 minutes. If you're looking at a budget under $3,000, you'll find a comparable lead-acid unit that does the job for a fraction of the cost, albeit with the trade-off of heavier weight, shorter runtime, and more frequent battery swaps. The Vertiv also weighs around 150 pounds, so you'll need a sturdy rack or a dedicated floor space. That isn't a problem for a data center aisle, but it can be a hassle for a cramped server closet. Installation is another practical point. The GXT5 comes with an L1430P input and two L1430R outlets, which are great for 120/208V three-phase environments. If your facility runs on single-phase 120V, you'll need an adapter or a different input module, something that adds a small but real planning step. The unit also integrates an MVC, modular battery controller, which handles the battery health monitoring internally. That simplifies the wiring diagram, but you still have to configure the network management card if you want remote alerts. For teams that already use SNMP monitoring, that's a smooth fit. For a solo admin, it might feel like an extra layer of configuration. Who should walk away with this UPS? Small to medium enterprises that host their own virtual machines, edge locations that can't rely on a UP SaaS service contract, and any operation where uptime is directly tied to revenue or safety. If you run a lab that needs to keep instruments calibrated, a broadcast van with live streaming gear, or a point-of-sale network that can't afford a transaction loss, the GXT5's scalable runtime and rapid recharge are worth the premium. It also appeals to organizations with an environmental mandate. The lithium-ion chemistry reduces hazardous waste compared with lead-acid replacements, and the efficiency gains lower overall power consumption. On the flip side, skip this one if your load is under 1 kilowatt, you're protecting just a few peripheral devices, or you have a tight capex budget with no plan for future expansion. In those scenarios, a smaller line interactive UPS or even a UPS as a service subscription might give you the same protection without the rack footprint and the need for professional installation. Also, if you're in a region where the electrical code restricts the use of lithium-ion UPS systems in certain facilities, you'll need to double-check compliance before you order. A couple of practical quirks worth mentioning. The unit's LCD display provides real-time load percentage and battery health, but the menu navigation can feel